Please note, this event is being live streamed on CTN. Hello, and welcome to the Department of Transportation's Public Involvement Meeting for the Department's Public Involvement Procedures document and the Draft 2021 Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Thank you to everyone attending this meeting. I am Mary Beth Wojcinski, Transportation Assistant Planning Director in the Department's Bureau of Policy and Planning, and will be the moderator for this event. Before we start, I would like to go over the format of the meeting and introduce the team. This is a virtual live event and it will be recorded. We have two topics for discussion today: the Public Involvement Procedures document and the Draft 2021 Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. These documents will be referred to as the PIP and STIP, respectively. A formal presentation will be conducted on the PIP and then on the Draft 2021 STIP. Following each presentation, we will be holding a question and answer session. During the question and answer session, there are three methods of communication. You can email a question or comment to dot.draft2021 stipcomment@ct.gov. You could call and leave a voicemail at 860-944-1111. Please make sure you reference the PIP and the STIP in your response. Or you could post questions in the chat field to the right of your screen. The email, phone line, and chat line will be monitored by the project team, and comments will be posted to the chat window. You can access these questions or comments in the featured section of the chat box to the right of your screen. I will be reading all questions and the team will provide answers. You can post a question in chat or via email and voicemail at any time during the presentation, but they will not be addressed until the presentations are complete. With those housekeeping items out of the way, we will now proceed with our presentations. One additional item I need to discuss. It would be appreciated if you can participate in our demographic survey on this live event. You can access this survey on our STIP page or by going to www.surveymonkey.com/r/G3BFPKT. We also have a civil rights flyer available. You can get that at our DOT portal at dot.business/contract compliance/Title VI page. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of these programs. Not only am I the moderator, I am also the one giving the presentation on the Public Involvement Procedures document. Rosie Tuca, Transportation Supervising Planner, will follow this presentation with a presentation on the Draft 2021 Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Staff from the Bureaus of Finance and Administration, Policy and Planning, Engineering and Construction, and Public Transportation are on the line and available to answer questions. The first topic for discussion is the PIP. The Connecticut Department of Transportation welcomes and encourages robust public involvement from diverse groups of people throughout the state whose voices and viewpoints provide valuable insight during the decision-making process. Public involvement is vital to good decision-making, acceptance of ideas, reducing misunderstanding, and avoiding or resolving conflict. This PIP provides guidance, techniques, and examples for interacting, informing, and involving the public throughout the transportation planning process. Following this guidance will not only ensure the involvement of the public, other state, federal, and local agencies and stakeholders, but it will also ensure that the legal requirements for public involvement are met, and that the stakeholders and public expectations are managed appropriately. This collaboration will allow for good transportation decision-making in the state of Connecticut. The 9 chapters in the PIP provide the information that is necessary to implement effective and meaningful public involvement. Chapter 1 provides a list of federal and state directives for public involvement. Chapter 2 provides requirements and guidance for interacting, informing, and involving the public in transportation decision-making. Chapter 3 describes the public involvement that is required for transportation planning documents, such as the Statewide Long-Range Transportation Plan and the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Chapter 4 discusses the public involvement process and procedures for compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act and the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. Chapter 5 identifies the public involvement activities that are required during the design, survey, and rights-of-way phases. Chapter 6 discusses the public involvement activities that are required during the construction, operation, and maintenance phases of each project. Chapter 7 identifies the public involvement activities required for rail and bus transit services. Chapter 8 provides a list of tools, strategies, and techniques to ensure inclusive public involvement. The guidance in this PIP has been prepared to assist the department to comply with laws, regulations, and executive orders relevant to public involvement and outreach to traditionally underrepresented and underserved communities. Listed on this slide are various federal and state laws, regulations, and executive orders that we must adhere to. Public involvement efforts are essential to all projects, plans, and programs as a requirement of federal and state funding. Public involvement activities can and should include open houses, forums, online days, focus groups, public informational meetings, and public hearings. Early, continuous, and inclusive public involvement can help prevent project delays, additional expenses, and unforeseen problems. This slide provides information on public hearings and public informational meetings. You are presently at a virtual public informational meeting. The department's project managers are encouraged to conduct public informational meetings, virtual or in person, during all planning, implementation, and operation phases of projects, as may be necessary and appropriate. The department undertakes public outreach efforts when developing plans and programs such as the Statewide Long-Range Plan and the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Metropolitan planning organizations also undertake public outreach efforts when developing their transportation plans and programs. Planning and environmental linkages represent a collaborative and integrated approach to the information transportation planning to inform the environmental review process. This is used to link these preliminary planning studies, application, and decision-making process of the National Environmental Policy Act. Public involvement is required as part of the preliminary design for Environmental Policy Act and the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. These regulations begins early in the planning stage to ensure that environmental information is available to the public before decisions are made and before any actions are taken. Compliance with NEPA is required for all transportation projects that use federal funds. Under NEPA, public involvement and agency coordination activities are determined by the level of documentation that is required for each project and its corresponding class of action. The 3 levels of documentation are environmental impact statements, categorical exclusions, and environmental assessments. All projects in the state of Connecticut are required to comply with SEPA. The Connecticut DOT has adopted an environmental classification document that categorizes the types of actions that are typically undertaken by the department. Under NEPA and SEPA, public involvement in agency coordination activities are determined by the level of documentation that is required for each project. The department is responsible for public involvement during the design, survey, and rights-of-way phases of projects. Specific procedures for public involvement will vary with the scope and location of the project, as well as with other factors including whether or not it is a municipally administered design and/or construction contract. Such procedures will be governed by this PIP and the department's Work Zone Safety and Mobility Policy and Implementation Plan. At a minimum, there will be at least one opportunity for a public hearing to be held for any federal aid project which requires significant amounts of right-of-way, substantially changes the layout or functions of connecting roadways or of the facility being improved, has a substantial adverse impact on abutting property, otherwise has a significant social, economic, and environmental effect. Once the construction phase of a project is initiated, the responsibility for continuing project involvement and communication to the public is transferred to the Department's Office of Construction. It is important to maintain some level of public outreach and involvement during the project construction phase. In addition to the public involvement that was established during the project planning and design phase, it now becomes important to also reach out to the traveling public who will be affected during project construction. The operation support for Connecticut's transportation system is a critical link between the department and the public. These functions are evident on a daily basis with a direct link that benefits the public, town officials, community groups, highway users, law enforcement personnel, and others. After the construction phase of a project is completed, the operation and maintenance support phase begins. No legal public involvement requirements are applicable during the operation and maintenance support phases, but methods for ongoing communication with the public and procedures for department project follow-up are established. The Department's Office of Maintenance conducts on a daily basis throughout the state numerous activities that can affect travelers, residences, and businesses. These activities can range from pothole repair to roadway resurfacing. Public outreach for maintenance activities will result in a long-term and disturbance of traffic can be conducted using media strategies. The Bureau of Public Transportation is responsible for the day-to-day operations of rail and bus transit, capital project planning and implementation, conducting planning studies, and the management oversight of other federally funded transit programs. Public involvement activities are required for all these activities and are specific to the requirements of the FRA and the FTA. To outline a few that are listed here, public transit services, the Bureau of Public Transportation maintains ongoing communication with customers using traditional as well as more modern methods of communication. Fare and service changes. The department has specific requirements when fare changes or major service changes are proposed. A draft service and fare equity analysis must be conducted and presented to the public for comment at public meetings and public hearings for fare changes in the service area. Quality planning and project development requires meaningful input from the public. Many members of the public are generally interested in transportation and transit plans, programs, and projects, but may not know how to effectively provide input. A variety of tools, strategies, and techniques to assist department staff in conducting inclusive and meaningful public involvement are included in this document. This includes building community relations, engaging diverse populations, strategies for overcoming participation barriers, development of public outreach plans, communicating with the public, diverse meeting formats. This concludes my presentation on the updated public involvement procedures document. We will now enter the question and answer session. As a reminder, to ask questions during this question and answer session, there are 3 methods of communication. You can email a comment or question to dot.draft2021 STIP COMMENT at ct.gov. You could call 860-944-1111 and leave a voicemail. Please make sure you reference the PIP and the STIP in your response. You could post a question in the chat field to the right of your screen. The email, phone line, and chat line will be monitored by the project team, and comments will be posted to the chat window. You can access these questions or comments in the features section of the chat box to the right of your screen. I will be reading all questions and the team will provide answers. If you think of a question or comment after this meeting, you can still access the email and voicemail options. Please reference the PIP and/or the STIP. You can also send comments to me in writing at Mary Beth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317-546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut 06131-7546. The comment period is open until October 9th, 2020. Thank you. As I just stated, this is the question and answer time frame. If you have a question or a comment, you could enter it into the chat line, or you could send the email, a voicemail, or send a comment in writing. At this time, I see no comments in the chat window as of yet. Again, to send in a comment or a question, you could send an email to dot.draft2021 STIP COMMENT at ct.gov. You can call 860-944-1111 and leave a voicemail, or you can enter your comment or question in the chat line. You could also send a comment or question to me in writing at Mary Beth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317-546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut 06131-7546. So the first question that we see in the chat line: when is the department required to translate documents? Tiffany, can you handle that question, please?
Sure, this is Tiffany Garcia. I'm the Associate Title VI Coordinator for the department. So translation requirements vary depending on whether the document is project related or for a statewide program. So vital documents related to statewide programs are at a minimum translated into Spanish, where vital documents related to projects would proactively be translated when the project is in a community where at least 5% of the residents have limited English proficiency. So the language that it's translated into would vary by the various communities. The public always has the opportunity to request that documents are translated free of charge.
Thank you, Tiffany. The second question, could you say a word of how the department views virtual outreach? So during this COVID situation, we had to change our process from an in-person meeting to a virtual meeting. These are going well, I believe. You're in one right now. So we are now posting all of our virtual public meetings on our website. You can go to our front page of our website, DOT website, and you can see all of the public meetings that we have held virtually since this started. I hope that addresses your question. So again, you could send us an email, call and leave a voicemail, or put a question in the chat window. The next question from April Chaplin: how is the general public being notified of their ability to comment? If you're talking about this meeting here, If they're not in the live event, they could go to our website and they have a link right there that they could comment. You could also send me a letter, and my address is on the screen, Maribeth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut, 06131-7546. The public could also send an email to DOT Draft 2021 STIP comment@ct.gov or leave a voicemail. Those options are available until October 9th. And to continue on that discussion, we have posted an advertisement in all the local newspapers in the state. We had also submitted a brochure to our interested parties list, our community outreach groups, to the MPOs in the rural regions, to all the first elected officials and all the legislators, which gave them the opportunity and the information they needed to be involved in the public involvement. So the next question, why does the department have to prepare the PIP? And I apologize for not stating this is Maribeth Wojcinski giving these answers. The department is required to produce a PIP under our federal transportation planning regulations. The regulations state that we have to develop a public involvement procedures document that outlines how the department will provide the public the opportunity to review and comment on various plans, documents, and projects. This requirement is included in our current transportation bill entitled Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. So if there's any other questions on the PIP, please use one of our 3 methods of communication: email, voicemail, or the chat window. Again, the public comment period is open until October 9th, and the email and the voicemail will be available until that point. You could also send correspondence to me directly, Maribeth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut, 06131-7546. So to continue the discussion on our public outreach for this document and for this STIP, again, we put articles in all the major newspapers in the state. We put articles in the Spanish newspapers in the state. We have published a brochure that went out to various entities, including all the first elected official, all the legislators, all the interested parties in each MPO and RPO, to all of our community-based organizations. A question did come up about, did we use the transit districts? I'm not aware of us sending the information to the transit districts. If somebody else has the answer to that, please chime in. April, that's a good question. And outreach, thank you. Are we utilizing the local transit districts to notified riders? I don't believe I had sent the brochure to the transit districts, and if we have not, then we will remember to do that in the future. That's a good point. Does anyone else have any questions for the PIP? I don't see any new questions coming in. I'll give it one more minute and then we will go on to our next presentation on the STIP. I will add that we did have 2 interviews with local papers in the state, and you should be seeing those articles in your newspapers based on the STIP and the PIP, so look for those. Okay, seeing no additional questions on the PIP, we will move over to the STIP presentation, and that'll be conducted by Rosie Tuca. And just remember, if you do have any questions or comments on the PIP, you can still send the email, leave a voicemail, or add something to the chat window for the next session, and send something to me personally. So I'll turn it over to Rose.
My name is Rose Etuka. I'm the Transportation Supervising Planner for the STIP unit. My presentation will be on the 2021 to 2024 Draft STIP. My office, my unit, is charged with the development and maintenance of the STIP. At the end of my presentation, there will be a question and answer session. We have with us several DOT staff from different bureaus ready to answer questions that might pertain to their respective offices. Most of you here already know what the STIP is, but for the benefit of those that don't know, the STIP is a 4-year planning document that contains projects expected to be funded either in part or fully with federal funds within those 4 years. The 5th year is strictly future year investment, which the department added to inform the public or to show the public future needs beyond the 4 years. The STIP has been developed in accordance with the terms and provision of federal regulations such as the Fixing America's Surface Transportation FAST Act and the Clean Air Act of 1970, which was amended in 1990. That's why I was hesitant about that. It's amended in 1990. Among other criteria, the STIP must be developed at most every 4 years, and it should list projects in priority order, and it should be financially constrained by year. Projects listed in the STIP must come from conforming state long-range plan and the metropolitan plan transportation plans. The STIP is a multimodal document which includes investment in various transportation modes, including transit, highway, and bicycle. The STIP is developed in accordance with the Title 23 of the United States Codes. It is developed in cooperation with the 8 Metropolitan Planning Organization and in consultation with the 2 rural planning organizations throughout the state of Connecticut. The STIP is a continual process. Our office initiates the process by requesting from the Bureau of Finance and Administration the list of projects intended to be federally funded within the next 4 years. Finance and Administration, in cooperation with engineering and construction, highway operations, and public transportation, will generate this list of projects and forward it to our office. Using this list, our office will develop a draft list of projects. This draft list of projects will be sent to the MPOs for their review and comments. Comments received from the MPOs are reviewed and addressed. The same list of projects is also sent to the Travel Demand and Air Quality Modeling Unit to start the air quality conformity process. Our office will develop a draft STIP with consideration to all the comments and changes forwarded to us from the MPOs. The state and the MPOs will hold their public meeting respectively. An at least 30-day comment period on the draft TIP and draft STIP is allowed for public review and process. The MPO must endorse their TIP and forward it to our office. Upon receipt of all MPOs endorsed TIPs, we compiled all the TIPs and the rural area projects without modification or changes to produce the final statewide transportation improvement program. Comments received during public comment period are reviewed, addressed, and may be incorporated into the final draft STIP. The final draft STIP is sent to FHWA and FTA for their approval. Funding sources for the STIP. There are 3 sources of funds available for the STIP projects. The primary source of funds are federal funds. These could be either federal highway or federal transit funds. Example of federal funds under FAST Act includes National Highway Performance Program, known as the NHPP, Surface Transportation Program, known as the STP, also could be referred to Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, National Highway Freight Program, Highway Safety Program, Transportation Alternative Program, known as the TAP, Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, known as the CMAQ. In the FTA side, that is the Federal Transit Administration side, we have the capital programs and the FTA operating programs. A brief description of these programs can be found in the Draft STIP narrative that is available online. The major source of state funds consists of a legislative apportionment from the state's Special Transportation Fund, which includes the bond funds, motor fuel tax, and motor vehicle receipts. Now, there is a limited amount of local funds available for state projects, for the STIP projects. The financial plan for the 2021-2024 Draft STIP. As mentioned, the STIP is a 4-year program, and this particular STIP contains 223 projects and has about 36 federal funding categories. As you can see from the chart, it programs $3.163 billion in federal funds, which will be matched with $684.472 million in state funds and $16.984 million in local funds. And this is a total of $3.865 billion. That is the federal fund, the state funds, and local funds all together is a program cost of $3.865 billion. Within the transportation mode, a total of $2.343 billion, which is roughly 60%, will be programmed for highway and bridge capital programs, and a total of $1.522 billion, which is approximately 39%, will be used for transit, and that includes rail, bus, and rideshare capital and operating costs. Here are the list of some major projects that are listed in the 2021-2024 Draft STIP project list. We have the rehabilitation and replacement of highway bridges across the states, rehabilitation of the I-95 Gold Star Bridge in New London, statewide bus replacement, city transit facility rehabilitation and improvement. We have the New Haven line track replacement, station improvement programs, and signal system programs. We have the Walk Saga East Avenue, Osborne Avenue, and 4th Point Street Railroad bridges. We have the Middletown Route 9 traffic signal removal, Norwich City 84 improvements. We have the Montville, Salem, Connecticut 85 improvement. We have the East Lyme I-95 interchange 74 improvement. We have the New Canaan, Norwalk, Connecticut 15 improvements, Greenwich, Stamford I-95 improvement, and Norwalk I-95 improvement, to list but few. as mentioned earlier, the list of projects that will be included in the 2021 to 2024 STIP is forwarded to our Travel Demand and Air Quality Modeling Unit to start the air quality conformity process. Here are the air quality conformity findings. In response to the Clean Air Act of 1970, which was amended in 1990, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, established National Ambient Air Quality Standard, known as the NAAQS, for various pollutants, including ozone and its precursors, VOC and NOx, particulate matter, PM, and carbon monoxide, CO. The conformity process ensures that transportation projects contained in the Metropolitan Transportation Plans and the Transportation Improvement Plans meet the goals of the NAAQS by means of each state's statewide implementation plan. EPA has designated certain areas of the country where the NAAQS have been exceeded. These are called non-attainment areas. Connecticut is presently in non-attainment for ozone and in attainment/maintenance for PM 2.5, thus necessitating conformity analysis for these pollutants in these respective areas. Conformity determinations for ozone and PM 2.5 are found in the document entitled Connecticut Department of Transportation Conformity Determination Report, April 2020. The program and plan were found to be in conformance. For this 2021-2024 Draft STIP, our comment period started August 24 and will end October 9th, 2020. The department also took out a display ad in major daily newspapers across Connecticut, notifying the public of the availability of the Draft STIP for public review and comment. The Draft STIP will be available for review, or is available actually. The Draft STIP is available for review online at www.ct.gov/DOT/STIP. It is also available for review at various local council of government, and of course here at DOT by appointment only, so we can maintain the social distancing required. Also, all Connecticut's MPO have agreed to include in their public information meeting notice that an opportunity will be provided to review and discuss the Draft STIP at their public meeting for their tips. Rural regional planning organizations also will publicize availability of the Draft STIP document online for review. Again, the Draft STIP is available online for public review. After a review and consideration of all public comments and the TIP endorsement by MPOs, a final version of the STIP will be prepared and submitted to FHWA and the FTA for their approval. Considerations and responses will be given to public input, and all who submit written comments will be notified of the availability of the final approved STIP document. This concludes my presentation on the draft 2021-2024 STIP. And we are in the question and answer session. And as mentioned earlier, we also have several DOT staff to address any question that might pertain to their respective offices. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, we're in the question and answer portion for the STIP. If anyone has questions, you could enter them in the chat line. You could send an email to dot.draft2021STIP@ct.gov. You could provide a comment via voicemail by calling 860-944-1111. You can leave a message in the chat line. You could also send a written comment to me directly, Maribeth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut, 061317546. We have one question so far. Rosie Tuca, please answer this question. How often do you update the STIP?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The STIP is actually updated frequently. However, we do a 2-year update to the entire program. The STIP is updated every 2 years. But there, in between that, there is amendments and actions that take place before those 2 years.
Thank you.
And as I said during the meeting, the STIP is available in your local COG, Council of Government. If you're interested in reviewing it, you can get in touch with them, and they can make arrangement either to send one to you or we'll point you to the DOT website. It's online for review, the STIP project lists and the STIP documents. And we did get a question regarding the description of the funding available for the STIP. If you go to the STIP website, in the STIP narrative, you will find the description for all the funding available for the STIP projects in this 2021-2024 STIP year.
So are there any additional questions on the STIP? Again, there's 3 ways to send us comments or questions. We have the email, the voicemail, and the chat window. We'd like to remind people that are online that we do have a brief survey we'd like you to take. It's our demographic survey. If you're on the computer watching, you could see the link to the brief survey in our chat line. If you are not, you could go to www.surveymonkey.com/r/G3BFPKT. The link to that survey is also on our website.
There is a question, Maribeth. I think it says, how is a project added to the STIP, right? How is a project added to the STIP? Project, regardless whether the project comes from DOT or whether the project originates from MPO, There's a process that the project has to go through. And one of the project is review by MPOs. Each MPO has to review the project, and their technical board has to review it if they have one, and the policy board will have to vote on it. There will be a public outreach on that particular project based on the MPO's bylaw, and upon their approval into their respective TIPs, then it will be incorporated into the STIP. The project to get into the STIP must go through the MPO for their approval before it gets into the STIP. And that's how a project is added to the STIP. Also, the project, if it's using federal dollar, has to go through the air quality analysis. And upon the air quality finding or determination, then it can move forward for their MPO review and approval. And then the DOT will incorporate it into the STIP. Was that clear enough, Maribeth? Or whoever, I hope.
Yes, thank you, Rose.
Great.
We could give this a few more minutes to see if a few more questions come in. Right now, we've answered all the questions that have come in. So again, if you have a question, you can leave an email at dot.draft2021 stipcomment@ct.gov. You can leave a voicemail at 860-944-1111 or leave a chat in the window to the right of your screen. Our comment period is open till October 9th. And the chat line, the voicemail and the email will be operational until that day. You could also send something to me personally, Maribeth Wojcinski, P.O. Box 317-546, 2800 Berlin Turnpike, Newington, Connecticut 06131 7546. Okay.
There is a question, Maribeth, an air quality question. Is induced demand analysis included in air quality analysis of projects?
All projects that go through the air quality analysis phase are first go through our travel demand modeling phase and then into the air quality modeling phase. So yes, all projects are looked at for their demand analysis. So if I could once again mention our survey, if you could please participate in our survey. There's also a link on the YouTube page below the video with the that shows the survey also. So if you're watching on YouTube, you have access to that survey. If you are watching here in the chat room, you have the link to the survey. And if you're just listening, you could get to the survey at www.surveymonkey.com/r/G3BFPKT. So if the question on air quality talks about is demand analysis included in air quality on all projects included in the STIP, the answer is yes. Are there any additional questions on the STIP? Or on the PIP? I appreciate everybody attending today, both internal and external. And again, if you have any questions or comments you want to send to us after this meeting closes, you could use the email, the voicemail, and send something to me personally. If there are no other questions, I will be closing the meeting. So I'll give it another minute to see if there's any other questions. Okay, hearing no more questions or comments, I will close the meeting. we will adjourn. Thank you all for participating. We appreciate it. And please do the survey if you're able. Thank you, everyone.